So ever since I was young, I always knew that I wanted to serve. Whether it was from watching Vic Morrow in combat when I was a young man, or paying attention to all the old World War II movies I might have seen with my dad. But I always knew I wanted to serve. I'd build models and make them as realistic as possible. I'd study the models, I'd study airplane books, mechanized warfare books, et cetera, et cetera. So armor crewman was a thing for me. I wanted to drive tanks, I wanted to be a tank commander, and so I became one. But the Army in the 80s, the all-volunteer Army, although strong because it was all volunteer and it makes sense to do that, it was not filled with the leadership that you really needed as a young man. It wasn't, not from my perspective. I was 21 when I left Germany in 1986, and I just decided, well, I'll just go do something else. I took a small break from regular Army, and I was still associated and affiliated with National Guard unit out of Ligonier, Pennsylvania. I went back to Western Pennsylvania where my mother and father decided we would settle as a family. And I pretty much lived out of my mom and dad's basement for a while. I worked for United Parcel Service. I was a laborer, then I became a supervisor. Somewhere in there, I said, let me go back to work as in the Army and let me transfer over to Special Forces. Yeah, let me do that. Well, I had to go back to basic training. So I was staff sergeant, and now I go back into the Army as a specialist. So I'm a 27, 26-year-old specialist, and I'm playing all the games. But I already knew that was okay. When the lights went out, I would get out of my bed, go to the train, and do PT. That's not a lie. That's not any kind of weird fabrication crap. I just knew that I needed to do more. I wasn't getting enough. And I went straight to parachutist school. And strangely enough, I was the honor grad in parachute school. It was weird, right? I was the enlisted honor grad. And then once that was over, you went to Ranger Indoctrination Program. And at RIP, I was the honor grad. I was like, wow, things are really going well. As soon as I got to 175, I got the beat down. So I got to 175, made it through RIP. I had a lot of fun, learned a lot about myself and the men around me. And every young man who basically comes out of RIP and gets to their Ranger company, they're gonna get smoked. They're gonna get a smoke session. Welcome to the company. And here we are in the hallway, and we're doing starbursts, we're on our backs counting the tiles. Count the tiles while you're doing flutter kicks and whatnot. And then they start asking these young specialists that are already tabbed, they have the authority to go out there and smoke these young men. And so we're in the hallway getting smoked, and guy comes out and they start asking Ranger history questions. What was this? Who was Robert, who was Ranger, who was Ranger this? What action did they do when in World War II and whatever else, and et cetera. What was the King Philip's War? Blah, blah, blah. We go through all these litany of questions, and I answered them all correctly. And so I don't know what specialist that came up and said, why are you answering all the questions correctly? That's your Forrest Gump moment. Because I paid attention. Gerald Sauers, right? That's that whole idea. Because I paid attention, man. I love the Ranger history. I love the whole history aspect. And here I am more mature than these other cats, so I paid attention. I like that stuff. And then a sergeant comes out. He pulls me into a room. He says, get in here. And I'm in there, out of breath. And he says, tell me your story. So I tell him right away, I was in the Army for a time and blah, blah, blah. And, okay. So you're different. And the Rangers are obviously very particular about who they let into their circle. But my time in service was creating an issue. I was supposed to be getting hired or promoted to a sergeant. Well, you don't get promoted in the Ranger Battalion as a leader, and you can't remain as a leader unless you successfully pass Ranger School. Well, old Dutchy boy was not a good swimmer. And when I had to do the survival swim, and I did it in the cold water also, and the time of the year it was, I failed it. They say, well, you're gonna get promoted. So in the end, I got promoted. I was a sergeant as 11 Bravo in the Ranger Regiment without a tab. When I got promoted, there were plenty of people that just turned their back on me. It was wrong, right? Hey, it wasn't my fault, bro. It was how they figured out they were gonna do this. And it was it was iffy. It was a chance they were taking. We used to wear our rank on our collars. A sergeant's rank is more like a square. A PFC's rank and a private's rank and a specialist rank, they're squares too, but they're much smaller. Everyone can clearly see that, you know, when you sew these things on, right, and then you wash your uniform countless times, they fade. Well, in Ranger School, all rank comes off. So that all gets stripped away, just your name, taped, and your U.S. Army is on your body. I'm in the mountains, and one of the Ranger instructors says, hey, bud, what are you? You in commo? I said, no, Sergeant. So are you a medic? No, Sergeant. Because he could clearly see that the faded mark on my collar is that of a sergeant. So I must be some sort of direct support guy. After he asks me if I'm a medic and I say no, he goes, oh, you're the one. Swear to God. I'm like, I'm screwed, right? What happens to I'm all puckered up, man. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm doomed. I'm totally doomed. But I swim out of it. I make Ranger School, I finish it up well, did okay. And I finally make it back. And you know, the rest is really history. Really, you know, I do well as a sergeant, I do well as a staff sergeant, I get promoted staff sergeant in 175. And then they say somewhere down the pike, somebody comes up and says, hey, there's a video presentation at the theater that we want all non-commissioned officers to go to. Okay. So my platoon sergeant says, go. I'll roger that. When he says go, I go.
Now, more than ever, world situations need special responses, special operations with special warriors, special soldiers, special forces.
So I went there, and I'm like the only cat there. And there's a recruiter, and he has a screen, and he plays this video. He plays this recruiting video for a unit that is very specialized. And that video is really cool. These guys are doing some really cool stuff. Explosive breaching, they're climbing into windows, they're blowing windows out, they're doing CQB, they're driving around in cool stuff, they're jumping out of airplanes, free fall, blah, blah, blah. And he says, hey, this is a special mission unit, and this is really important, blah, 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 and think about how you want to test yourself as you go forward as a man or as a non-commissioned officer in the Army, and maybe this is for you, maybe it's not. So somewhere down the line, I said, I think this is for me. I'm going to try it anyway. I just figured this way. My mindset was, why not test your mettle? It seemed to me a natural thing to do. What gates are we going through next, right? You're an infantryman, that's a gate. You know, you're an infantryman that knows how to jump out of airplanes, that's a gate. Then you're an infantryman that knows how to jump out of airplanes, and you go to Ranger School, and it's a premier leadership academy, right? And you become Ranger tabbed, parachutist, infantryman. It's a smaller brotherhood. Every time we go through this next gate, it's a smaller brotherhood. Now you're in 175, smaller brotherhood yet. And then I'm thinking, hey, this is the next step for me. So let's see if I can't complete this mission.
Phase 1 is Special Forces Assessment and Selection. Most of the volunteers consider this phase the most physically challenging of the qualification course. SFAS will test...
I go to selection. I go in the spring where there's plenty of snow, and I fail. I fail, but in my exit interview, the boss says, you'll probably be okay to come back. So I decided that it would make it my mission to be better prepared, and I would go the following fall. So I went back to back. I went in spring, and then I went in fall. Went in fall, and I successfully navigated it, and went finally to OTC. Successful 10 combat tours. I think I did 12 tours total, 10 combat tours, give or take, 1,000 hits against potentially armed enemies. Did work in Afghanistan, did work in Iraq, worked with Ranger elements. I worked with a lot of task force elements, English, Australia, New Zealand, German, so it's FSK from Norwegian, KSK from the Germans, SAS, SASR, even working with the FBI, HRT, just so many folks you get to work with, so many great folks that climb the ladder to this excellence. It was just a pleasure, and I'm completely blessed to be able to continue to work with these cats. But one of the first things when I got to the element itself, we were preparing for a mission in Bosnia, and we were using a device that was meant to be a standoff, door breaching type of device. It was called a assignment device. It would go on the end of your rifle. You'd fire your rifle. The rifle would not, the rifle itself would activate this charge. It would come out of your rifle. Again, it was a hollow charge weapon, standoff breaching tool. It would hit the door and boom, you could standoff breach it. We decided to use it on a car just to see what it would do. It was a good experiment. We wanted to see if we could stop a car. So we did. We took the device down range and we did it on a car. It was a large car. It was a Lincoln Continental, something like that. It was a large car. Word is, hey, look, your mission is now changed. If the car gets through where it was before, where your team is, we want everybody on the inside of that car to be disposed of. So everybody's gonna get the good news if this car breaks where it's intended to stop. So, all right, let's go back downrange and see what this device does to targets inside of the cab. So I take a knee, I fire this weapon, this device, at the door of the car, and it shears the door, most of the door, and the skin off the car, and it comes back and it hits me in the face. Well, it breaks my neck, it breaks my jaw, and I'm spitting chiclets out. And I'm taking a knee, and Paul Linskin's a great dude. Paul's the medic, and he says, I'm spitting, I'm good. And he goes, no, you're not. Get in the Humvee. Long story short, they had to crike me, spent a couple of days in the hospital. That was like your welcome aboard. Gets blasted in the face with a piece of metal. I was in a collar for a month, had to drink protein drinks for a month, couldn't eat anything, jaw wired shut. In the end, it all worked out. Other trials and tribulations I had overseas, I was never awarded a Purple Heart, never really wounded. Got attacked by a dog. One of our dogs hammered me, attacked me. Again, Paul Linskins was the medic on that one. That was pretty cool. So Paul saved my life numerous times. 2 back surgeries, and then cancer. Don't know, don't think it's related to combat, but it's hard to say. When you're, all the human debris that you touch or you inhale, you have no idea what's happening, or the batteries that are burning, or the burn pits that you're constantly living next to, or the living conditions, or the rats, or the feces that you may, we've seen some big rats, bro. There's some big rats in the basement of the MSS in Baghdad. So who knows? It was called a gastrointestinal stromal tumor. The quick part of the story is, it was Memorial Day weekend. Early in the morning, I had this intense pressure, couldn't break it. I had to go to the ER. Found out that the doctor didn't know pretty much nothing, and he said, you got kidney stones. 3 days later, so the tumor exploded that night. So 3 days later, we finally go back to the clinic because I'm distending. I could see it in the mirror, and I said, we'll just wait till tomorrow. It's a 4-day weekend. We'll wait till tomorrow. We'll go Tuesday. So we went Tuesday, and to me, it's another cool story because everybody says, do you know you were dying from the inside? You know how people don't survive this. There was one of the, Craig Taylor was one of our medics, and he goes, I just want to tell the story to you, and you have to know it. And he shows me this scale. He's up there on a whiteboard drawing this thing out. He goes, this is where people don't survive this, right? People die right here. You just kind of just hung out. On the ER table, after I drank some contrast, you could see my cavity actually expand, like a slow second hand on a clock. It was pretty bizarre. And then they say, you have 5 years to live. I said, when can I put my kit back on? Probably not the thing anymore. You know, now you have to think about other things now. Instead of putting your kit on, now you have to think about, are you gonna chase your daughter in the backyard 5 years from now? Because maybe you aren't. That's a kind of a punch in the gut. You sit around and you feel sorry for yourself a little bit. I took a chemotherapy medicine for over 10 years. And now it's probably not gonna come back, or maybe it will come back. You know, I went to Memorial Sloan Kettering, one of the #1 cancer hospitals in America. It's in New York. And the lady tells us, hey, you know, sometimes it comes back, sometimes it doesn't. So it's just one of those things. You know, it's second back surgery. Surgeon tells me I shouldn't jump out of an airplane anymore. I shouldn't wear a kit anymore. So now all the fun things that I can do and need to do as an operator, now they're all being taken away. Started the process, and in 13, I got out. But I never, somewhere in 2012, I thought maybe I would never carry my rifle ever again. This guy said, this is how much money you can make if you do these things overseas and help my people. And I was with 3 or 4 other mates of mine, and we all kind of said yes. And so I became a GRS officer, and I helped out a government agency protect their people overseas. My first pool was in Erbil. I spent some time in Sulaymaniyah, northern Iraq, all over that place, Beirut. And honestly, it's kind of a thankless, godless job. So, which is sad, but I was jaded. Look, I came from a place where, you know, 99% of the people want to be excellent. And here I was, it's not necessarily the case here. Did a lot of really good work in 17 and 18. And I started making my relationships with other law enforcement agencies as well. And I really want to just start giving back to law enforcement agents and then military guys too. In 18, I worked with D Company leaders in training, and just a fantastic time in my career to work with these cats almost all year. We did 26 or 28 different brigade combat teams across the United States, Alaska, Hawaii. It was just fantastic work to be able to hang out with men that you already knew, and then training soldiers that were going to go into the fight. I used to be an agent of correction. One of our pastors actually said, before we went to Afghanistan, he goes, you guys are agents of correction. You guys are now the agents of correction. And I can't do that anymore. So these cats out there can do that. So can I give back to them? Hopefully all the things that I've learned and my mates have learned, we can take this information, make it palatable that law enforcement, current military members can use and survive. And that's all I want. You know what? A friend of mine, I called him up on the phone. He said, I just want you to know, this happened exactly like you said it would. We did exactly like you trained us to do, and we came out on top. And that right there, that's all I want. That's all I ever want. I'm completely full of gratitude when I wake up every morning after the cancer, after combat, after a broken neck, that I can go forward today and go do something else. I can move out. I can go do stuff, right? I have the use of my fingers and my toes. I can walk. So I'm grateful, constantly grateful. I often say I've seen a very Charles Dickinson look at things. I've seen the best and the worst of times. I really have. I think, but I embrace it. Life is full of the best and the worst of times. And to me, mindset is I'm going to keep going. I'm never going to stop until that guy puts that bullet in my brain or until it's time for me to die. I'm not going to quit. You just get over the hurdle that's in front of you and keep moving. If I'm drinking coffee or whatever, it's whiskey, whatever bitter brew I'm drinking, you know, I think about my men those times, and over again, I can tell you that it's the best possible place with the best possible people, and sometimes it's the worst possible conditions, but it's always the best time.